Coach. And again, I don't know. Again, whenever I met you when you hired me, and when I talk to you still, I still say the same things. I don't think they. I don't think. I think you were the only coach that didn't know the record of middle and high football and didn't familiar with high football. But let me go ahead and refresh you again because you probably don't. I still think you still don't know, or you just choose to forget. But before you became the head coach in what year was it? 2002.
2002. 2002, or football season.
2002, the last season that Midland High was relevant, the last season that they were even in the picture was 1998. That's when they lost the coin flip. Middle Lee and Permian won the coin flip, and Lee got kicked out.
Yep, yep. Yeah,
Um,
now that was 88.
yeah, 88. So that
That
was,
was 88.
I mean,
Yep.
how many years was that? That was 14 years before you get this, before the audience. For the audience. The last time Midland High, and I told you just that earlier, the last time Midland High made the playoffs, not even, we're just talking about able to play an extra game other than the 10 games that you really played, was was 1936. FDR was still our president of the United States that year. And so I don't think either you were really up for the challenge or you just didn't know where you were going. Coach
Well,
was a lower classification every year, right? We're
the
full
well, the
forever.
the the comment my assistant superintendent in Hereford made, and I still remember, good friend, good supporter, was something to the effect, "Have you lost your mind?" Yeah, that was. I tell you something that a funny anecdote too of that was when we did make the playoffs in '02. Like you said, the last playoff win had been 36. When the last playoff game they'd even played in was 51. I mean,
That's
it
right.
would be it had been 51. Now they lost that game. It had been 51 since they'd even played a playoff.
Unbelievable.
So, we make the playoffs. And we beat Lee because we hadn't beat Lee in 14 years. I mean, it's just crazy stuff.
Oh,
But
gosh.
so,
I'm
so
gonna tell you, I'm gonna tell you
yeah,
something. So I'm from Monahans, right? I played football for the Monahans Lobos.
yeah,
The Monahans Lobos would scrimmage Midland High for a victory. I mean, and
yeah,
we're
and beat the pants off of them. Yeah.
you
Well, and so, we make the playoffs, and so we had this big pep rally down at Memorial planned. We're getting ready to play Duncanville, and I mean, I'm probably stupid because we didn't have the kind of athletes Duncan. I mean, they had like 6 or 8 D1s, and we're just middle and high. But anyway, so we get pushed inside, and we're having our little pep rally out there on Friday. We played on Saturday, and we're having a little pep rally, and just kind of show again how, I mean, I really was oblivious to your point, but just to show just an experience that happened to Tammy and I. So we're in the weight room just enjoying the pep rally. Obviously, our kids are excited, our community is excited. First playoff game in 51 years. Man, if we win, it'd be the first playoff victory since '36 and all that. And so, this older gentleman, just Tammy and I are just kind of standing over, just enjoying the moment together. And this older guy, he's in his 70s, and he just walks over. He's a granddad, and he looks at me and he says, "Coach, let me tell you something. There's there's no place that I'd rather be than in Abilene tomorrow night watching the Dogs play Duncanville in the playoff game." He said, "Because I want to let you know something. In my entire life, I've never seen a Midland High football playoff game."
wow.
And
Yeah.
I'm kind of going, I looked at Tammy and I said, "Can you believe that? I mean, this guy's 75." And, of course, we'd had a lot of success at Hereford, and even when we were at Tuttle, and I mean, I've coached in a lot of playoff games, and I'm kind of going, "Holy cow! That was before I was born." And it just, I guess you said I didn't really realize. I guess that was the point that I thought, I don't know how smart I was taking this job.
You know, it's I bet you Herbert, I bet you A to Z and Conger packing their bags, thinking, "Man, we love Coach a whole lot, man. We wouldn't be packing our bags for no reason."
Yeah, that was another whole story trying to convince them two partners to get down here because they, Anna Scavenge, as a matter of fact, they'll tell you, him and Conger were talking behind my back and they're going, no way are we coming down here. So I was sweating BBs before I got my offensive and defensive coordinator to come down here with me.
That's awesome, Coach. So I'm going to go ahead before we get on to the rest of the years that you played and coached there. 15 years, won over 103 games. I mean, you won more games in your 15 years than the entire Middle High, the history of Middle High football. I mean, I looked as far back as I could, and I think it's about a tie in the history of Middle High football. So, again, I tell you all the time, that's just an amazing accomplishment. I don't think people really realize how much of an accomplishment it is that you were able to win so many games in that amount of time, comparatively speaking to the high schools, entire existence. It's just amazing, man. You when when you first started in Midland High, and you have talked about this a lot of times. I say this to people every year. Midland High is at a disadvantage when it comes to playing high level 6A football, simply because of the demographics and then plus the way the infrastructure of the school. I always thought that was the craziest thing. The field house is uh, halfway across town from the high school.
Yeah.
Kind of explain, like, how was that? Because I'm sure that was a lot. That was a lot different handling that situation compared to Hereford, in terms of trying to turn around a program.
Well, I mean, it's, it's a great question. And, it's interesting that since we've talked, I mean, in my new job of getting around now, selling letter jackets and I get to see coaches now and talk to ADs and exchange ideas still today. I mean, that's what I enjoy about the job. It's still that special relationship that coaches have with each other, just like you and me. I mean, that'll never go away. I mean, and that's one of the special things that we all have in this profession. But I was over at Crane yesterday, and Jeff Cordell said this, and I really think a lot of him. But he was talking about a situation he has at Crane, and it's not the best, but he said, we're just not going to make that excuse. And Joe, I mean, that was, or I mean, I'll never forget. Okay, so the first day of two days, and I'd seen this during the summer, and I'm trying to think, okay, what is one signature thing coming in the middle and the middle and high kids? Because we knew we had good athletes. I mean, we really did. We were blessed. But what is the one thing that can be our go-to? In Hereford, it was always semper fidelis, always faithful, because we did have a lot of tradition. And we used that old Marine Corps deal, hey, you're always faithful to the guys that came before you to make this program what it is. Of course, we didn't have that here. Obviously, to say the least. So you're kind of thinking, okay, what is that one thing that we can come up with? So I'm watching ESPN one night in the middle of summer, and Marty Schottenheimer, who bless his heart, I mean now he's got Alzheimer's and he's not good, but great NFL coach, and he'd just taken the San Diego job, and he's talking about same deal. I mean, just San Diego hadn't been very good, and they had a lot of issues. And he said, we're going to use this. And of course, you think we just passed 2000, which was the cyber deal, where
Oh,
the world was going to come to an end. The K 2000 deal or whatever that was, world's going to come to an end because of the cyber wars or whatever. And so Schottenheimer goes, we're going to use the WWW deal. He's telling this ESPN guy, and the guy looks at us, what does that mean? And he said, we will win, period. And I remember that deal, Coach. That was it. I mean, I put on our Midland dog football coaches shirts, on every shirt I put WWW on the back. And we called the seniors and the team over after the first workout. No, it was actually before we even went to work out. That first 2 day in shorts and helmets, and I called them over and I said, guys, I, I just played for a state championship. We were 3-time district champions in Hereford. We had a lot of success, and I said, I've got a senior that I moved down here. I said, we didn't move down here to lose. We didn't move down here to have less than the highest expectations we can have. And I said, I'm sorry if you can't handle that, if you can't handle that kind of pressure, then maybe you're in the wrong spot. But that's what this stands for on the back of these coaches. I made the coaches turn around. I said, that stands for we will win, period. And so that's just kind of how we started the deal, you know.
And it caught on quickly. That's pretty cool. So again, I was you had success. I mean, you coach here 15 years. I look at your record, and it just like all high school coaches, you don't. Not every year is just the greatest year, but coach, your record at Miller High is just shocking, man. I tell you all the time. I say I just can't believe it. Um, we can see how Miller High. I tell people all the time, you're one of the greatest coaches I ever met.
I appreciate that.
Everyone, sometimes don't understand. And I have to explain to them. Remember where he was at? He was at Miller High.
Yeah.
They were terrible before him, and they're terrible after him. I said, so just remember. But so
Well,
I always win the argument
appreciate that.
because you can take Middle High football and it's like, here's the graph, it just stays like this. And then for 15 years is like this. And then in 2018 or 17, it just goes right back down to this. So, I mean, to me, it's just amazing. But it goes to show the type of culture that you created, not only at Hereford, but at Midland High. To me, it takes a special coach to kind of create that culture. You got to have everybody kind of in the right spots. The assistant coaches, uh, like you said, Tammy uh, has has a great impact in that. The administration, it takes a village to create that culture. So for you to do it in two spots that were hard to do, it's not like you going to South Lake Carroll. Is
Oh no, yeah. I Joe, I would have messed South Lake Carroll up big time. Or Katie or so. That's why I guess that's why I never got one of those jobs because I'd messed that dude up. I didn't know how to coach those kind of kids.
Coach, I want to talk about how you were able to create that culture and explain that for the younger coaches that are going to listen. But before we get to this culture setting deal, um, I want to talk about the legend. I hear, you know, your son Clay. People don't remember. Let me remind people of the Miller High faithful here. He was able to throw 4 passes at the Sun Bowl in El Paso, man. So explain that game. I bet that was a cool game. Kind of explain that.
Well, Joe, one of my favorite memories. I mean, one of the very joyful, wonderful things that we as coaches get to do is to coach your kids.
Mhm.
I mean, it's you can't explain it. I mean, it's the one experience I got to experience with Tyler. I mean, when we beat Lee and we make the playoffs for the first time in 51 years, and hopefully we're going to win a game, the next week. But I'll never forget the kids carried me off the field at Grande after. I mean, it was surreal. It was like everything was in slow motion. And old Victor, our big old right guard, and Tyler's on one side, and they just lift me up off the field, and we walk over to the ramp, and then uh, they put me down, and Tyler and I get to share that special moment of walking up the ramp. And it wasn't coach and player; it was dad and son. And you still get emotional when you talk about it, when you think about it. But he kind of looked at me, and first of all, he's kind of teared up, and I'm going, "You okay?" I'm going, "We got gameplay next tomorrow, next week. Or you can't be hurt." And he said, "No, Dad, I'm just happy it's all worked out, and we moved, and we're happy, and life is good." And you can't replace that.
No.
I mean, that's something. And so the same thing happened. Blessed to Clay Senior. I mean, it was, and that group was not as talented as the group that we had in '02, but they may be epitomized when you start talking about culture. Those kids never gave up and ended up being 10-3 and winning, going into the third. We played third round playoff game at the Alamo Dome against Denton Ryan, and they never gave up. I mean, we got our lips beat off by Lee that year. I mean, really did, because Lee had a great football team, and then same thing with Abilene High. So we ended up having two losses in district, but those kids were unbelievable. As a matter of fact, that same Lee team that beat us bad, they get beat out in the first round. We're still playing 3 rounds later.
Yeah.
But anyway, Clay's quarterback, and just having a great year, and Clay's um, he'd been in the system. Um, Clay's that guy that he sat on my lap when he was 4 years old, and we watched ESPN together. I mean, that's Clay. I mean, he was crazy about athletics. Not that Tyler wasn't, but he just and so Tyler that's why he played defensive end, because he wanted to get far away from dad as he could. But Clay played quarterback, which is what I coach. So so I mean, he just had a great year. But I mean, we get down in that game. I mean, we're playing a really good Franklin, El Paso Franklin team there, and they're good. I mean, they got athletes everywhere, and we're playing in the Sun Bowl. And I mean, they jump on us big time. I mean, I think we're down 3 scores, early.
Wow.
And these kids just never, like, it didn't phase them. It's like, okay, well, no big deal. So here we come back, and like I said, Clay starts throwing touchdowns, and I mean, we had some athletes. We really, I mean, 6A level, you're gonna have some. We had a really good. Chris Woods played receiver for us, and we had some really good offensive line kids. Baron Batch was a junior, and then we had some running back, and we had some other running backs that were really good, and I mean, they just, I think I think that culture that you talked about, and that we were starting to see that develop, and that was where you kind of start seeing the program do what you want the program to do from that perspective. And it's all about relationships, and it's all about hey, there's nothing wrong with getting knocked down, but are you gonna get back up?
Yes, sir.
And that bunch was all about. I mean, we had guys in off season from that bunch that were elected captains, and they would call their team. They were team leaders, and they would call their group up on Sunday just to do some extra miles on the track, because that's what we need to do to win in March. You know.
That's good to
So I
have.
mean, and Clay was a part of that. I mean, Clay was a big part of that. Obviously, it's hard because you take all the criticism, and that was hard year on
Coach's
Tammy because
son. Yeah, he's a coach's son. He's a quarterback. And I'm sure Tammy, again, the coach's wife, take the brunt of this thing because
yeah,
she's up in the
awful.
stands. She's probably hearing it, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
awful. Just crap, just stuff. So it's bittersweet, but man, after those games, you just those times you share with your sons. And he brought us back. I mean, I don't know whether he still has the record. I think somebody may have slipped up and threw one more touchdown pass, but forever he had the most touchdown passes thrown in one game ever, Middle High history, 4.
yep.
It just so happened to be a huge playoff win.
Yeah, I remember. Coach Irvin would talk about it all the time. Just to get Clay, just to get a little bit of hate, man. Clay would always chop away, and so it turned into a joke, and so that was always cool. So I want to talk about the culture, but I'm going to give you, if you want to, Coach, you want to explain that Midland High 19, I mean, that 2002 championship game. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, or you just don't want to talk about that?
I never took that. I never took that approach, Joe. I mean,
That's good.
listen, for us, um, it was overwhelmed. I mean, again, to understand culture, we were all about our coaching staff. We were all about relationships, and that's the way we were in Hereford. Because one thing you learn in this deal is when now you get to where I am, retired, and the one thing I miss the games, and I miss the competitive, and I love the game of football. I still can't wait to watch the Super Bowl. I love to watch quarterback play. The strategy of the game, I miss that part. Okay, I loved when we had our Saturday and Sunday sessions at the field house, and we were, trying to figure out what we need to fix on Friday night and how we're going to try to beat the next bunch on Sunday. I mean,
Coach,
I miss it.
the reason why I wanted to ask you about culture is because I already know. I already so for and I'm going to go ahead and say that, and then I'm going to allow you to elaborate on it. So one thing I noticed early on when I walked into the field house was just that what you said. When you walked in there, you just kind of felt like it was a family when you just first walked in there.
Yeah,
It was refreshing. Like I remember everyone walking up to me, introducing themselves to me, and then automatically it's like I just remember leaving that first day, and I thought, wow, this kind of felt like everyone had known me for years. I mean, they had probably seen me
good.
across the
Yeah,
football field the last 3 years or whatever, but
right,
they didn't
right.
know me, and that feeling, and I became friends with all of them. I mean, just like that. I mean, it was, and it's crazy that I spent a short time there with you guys, but really, I became really good friends with almost all the guys, and it was just a really neat deal. And I remember thinking that being part of the culture, that being something that kind of allows a program to stick around it, to get all the parts around it. Having that family atmosphere on our coaching staff. And in this, coach, I'm going to say one more thing that I learned from you. Every time, I'm going to say almost every Saturday, um, you honestly would go and really talk to every coach, and you would ask them what they thought. I mean, you would even ask me, and and
Exactly.
that's one thing I always thought. Wow, Coach Yenzer, like this guy, he's serious when he asking you a question. He's not asking you just a. I'm gonna act like I need him to answer me. You asked serious questions, and you did that with every coach. I think that's one of the reasons why you established that culture and why so many of your assistants had that loyalty. So, again, I think I know your answer, but can you elaborate on that?
Well, I mean that comes from excuse me, that comes from again the guys that I was under. I mean, obviously, in this profession, you kind of earn your dues. You got to work to earn your keep, so to speak. And that was I remember in the field house in Hereford. I mean, we had I had a head coach, Danny Haney, after Don left, and I was his offensive coordinator. And one thing I learned from Danny, he wanted to know what you thought,
Hmm.
but part of that too was, if he asked you what you thought, just a short answer wasn't going to get it. He'd throw you the chalk or the dry erase marker and said, "Okay, get up here and show us."
Yeah.
He's kind of like,
Oh,
"Oh crap!"
no, I'm telling you, that's one thing that just made me love you. It really did. I would come home and tell
Yeah,
her that. I mean, before you would ask me questions, and you were sincere. Like you want to know what I thought about something, and you didn't just do it with, and you did it with every coach. And I just thought, wow. I mean, that's something that I always used to think if I was ever going to be a head coach, I mean, that was something I was going to do. I was going to try to do as you did, because to me that was just one thing that you did. I don't know if you knew if you were doing it on purpose or if you were consciously doing it, but it was special because every coach felt
Yeah,
they felt that they were a part of the program. So
I'm glad to know. I mean, Coach, I mean, really, that's just the way I was taught, and that's the way that I wanted to do it. I mean, I mean, I don't know that I really. I think there were two things that I knew I had to have from a coaching staff perspective. I did not want to be the guy, and you see guys in college do this, and some guys with high school programs do this. I wasn't going to be the guy that walked around being the supervisor, and I think all my guys knew. I mean, I didn't care how Coach Morales was going to coach linebackers. I mean, I did, but I mean, we went over philosophy. I mean, and Anaskevich told the defensive coaches what he wanted. But bottom line for me, I didn't care if the linebacker coach told him to, you know, read it and do two somersaults and then get up and make a tackle. If he's making tackles 2 yards deep every play, I don't care. I mean, and I think my guys do that. I mean, Jim, the offensive line, I mean, because what I learned is I wanted to hire people that were proactive. You know, I didn't want to have to micromanage coaches, and it was a little bit selfish. I'll be honest, because I wanted to coach quarterbacks in offense. I'm an offensive guy.
right,
You know, so I didn't have time to walk around and monitor people because I wanted to coach too.
right, right,
So I was blessed to have guys like you and guys like Medley and Irvin. I mean, even at the junior highs and freshman school, Joe. I mean, I was blessed because I wanted to hire people, and I always and Shane Fletcher was my first coordinator at the freshman school, and I told Irvin this, Coach Irvin, and now even Medley. After he took over, I said, hey, you guys are the head coaches at a 3A school. I said, that's Midland freshman. You're going to have 120 football players out. You got to manage the girls' sports. You got to manage the boys' sports. You got to get them out to the boneyard, as you said. We had a satellite campus. You got kids going everywhere. I said, I don't care if they're freshmen or whatever. I want you to run your campus. Now, I'm going to be there to support you, and I'm going to be there to do whatever it is you need me to do, but I'm not going to be there to micromanage you. I want you to get the job done. Here's the expectations. And, as you know, we all had job descriptions. I did that every year in the summer. I passed out folders with job descriptions to all you guys. Everybody knew who was going to do the laundry and who was going to do the sophomore room and who was in charge of trading film. And so, I mean, I think from a coaching perspective, uh, you have to let coaches coach. I did not want to be the guy on the sideline on the JV game on Thursday night telling the coach to call a pass play on 3rd and 1. I want you to coach, and I wanted to, and I wanted the players to play. I mean that I think there was one thing that we had on our chalkboard or our dry erase board. I'm gonna show how old I am. But, I had this in Hereford, and we had it here in Midland. First thing I put on the board in Hereford, and the first thing when we moved down here, and I put on the board in the coach's office at Midland High was an old Vince Lombardi saying, and I still can repeat it verbatim. And then there was one thing that I put in the locker room that I felt like was important too. But in the coach's office, Vince Lombardi had this saying, and it was an old piece. I don't know if you ever noticed. There's a raggedy old piece of paper sitting up on the very corner of the board at the front of the office, and it goes like this. It said, "Battles are won primarily in the hearts of young men." and if you win their hearts, they'll do anything for you. That's a Vince Lombardi from way. And if you listen to players, and a lot of them have passed away now, but the guys that played for Vince Lombardi, he was hard on them. I mean, but you know what? Those suckers respected Vince Lombardi, and you could tell by the way they talked and the memories they had, they would have done anything for
Mhm. No
him. And
doubt.
I wanted our coaching staff to understand that with kids. You can, and you can go out there on practice, and you can, you know, and we didn't cuss. I mean, we didn't cuss them. You know that. That wasn't our thing. But you can coach them hard, and you can have high expectations. But you know what? After practice, man, you better go in there, and if you just chewed that kid out all day in practice, you better go in there before he leaves. And I got this from Don Compton in Hereford. He said, you can chew them out and you coach them hard, but before they leave the field house, you better make sure they feel good about what happened out here today.
No doubt.
And that was a huge culture deal here at Midland High because those kids hadn't been treated that well earlier. And I'm not going to say any more about that, but they just,
Right.
before we came, it was not good.
No.
And so that was a culture we started with them. And then the other thing I felt like was real important is how you act. You know, I wanted our kids to have respect and know that they're representing something bigger than themselves. They're representing their family. From a personal perspective, they're representing their family, but more importantly, they're representing their school and their city and how you act. So we use Galatians 6:9, and I made that plaque up in Hereford, and I brought it down here with us, and we had it hanging in the. It's a Bible verse, Galatians 6:9. We had it hanging in the locker room, and basically paraphrase that Bible verse says, if you do what's right, good things will happen to you as long as you don't get discouraged and give up. Now that epitomizes my career. I think that epitomizes many of our teams that we had. Um, we may have been down and out many times. I may have been down and out as a coach. Those first 2 years, I was way down and out. But the good Lord's going to bless you if you just don't get discouraged and give up. And I think that happened to a lot of our teams.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got a couple more to ask. This is about how on the subject that we've been talking on. It maybe I don't know if you I know you've mentioned some of the mentors in your coaching career. I guess basically want to give you a chance to any other coaching mentors. Coaches like Conger. Guys that if you had to tell them thank you. I know there's a lot of them, but the ones that are kind of close to your heart still, if you could, what would you tell them, and who would they be?
And coach, I mean, what I tell them all is there's no way I could have done it without them. I mean, that goes back to the philosophy that I wanted to have. I mean, I wanted to be able to coach, and I didn't want to have to micromanage. And so I don't know whether you noticed, but I mean, it starts with Jim Conger. I mean, how can here's two people, and Jim would get frustrated with me, and I know I make him mad, or I won't use my coaching terminology, but you probably know what it is, but
Coach trying to
but
quit putting people in the
you
box.
know,
Get them out of there.
yeah, yeah, but Jim, I mean, we're together 21 years, and I mean, I always called Jim my drop dead coach. If I drop dead, you got this sucker. I mean, and really, the voice of reason. I mean, just what he meant to me personally, what he meant to our program. I can never repay that. I mean, there's just too much, and had a guy like Tim that we brought down here be the defensive coordinator, and I mean, he was the guy that I mean, I told Tim, hey, I don't have time to mess with defense on Sunday. Take the defensive staff back there. You guys get a game plan. We'll talk on Monday. I want to know what's going on. If you got any questions, come ask me. But I want you to handle that. And he did. I mean, handled it so well that, we played for state championships. And so, I mean, so it starts with those two guys. I mean, I'm going to leave people out. I mean,
Yeah, I didn't want to. I
it's
don't.
got
There's a whole lot of them. That's for sure.
I had a defensive coordinator in Hereford and an offensive coordinator in Hereford that I love. I mean, J.R. Compton was my offensive coordinator. By the way, he just got congratulations to him. I mean, he just got the head position at Floyd Dade. Always wanted to be a head coach. I mean, kind of like, hey, watch out, be careful what you ask for, Jr. But Bill Bridge was my offensive coordinator, our defensive coordinator in Hereford. So there's just so many. Lee Walker and Brett Gnarl came down here with us. From Hereford and made the move and made the sacrifices. I mean, it just, Joe, we hired 22 new coaches I started February 15th, and from February 15th to uh, to the day we went to coaching school in July, I hired 22 new coaches in the system.
Wow.
And I mean, again, we had to change the culture.
Sure.
And you said that, and so we interviewed everybody. We talked to everybody. I mean, we had 30 something football coaches with two junior highs and a freshman school and a high school. And so, I mean, it was just something we were allowed to do to build this program. And, when I first got here, as a matter of fact, after two weeks of being here in Midland, and my wife and kids are in Hereford, obviously the old staff was still here running off season, and it was a rattlesnake pit. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, it was pretty mean and pretty rough. And I went back home to Hereford, and I said, asked my wife, I said, "You reckon that superintendent give me old job back in Hereford? I'm kind of ready to change my mind here." but I mean, with the coaches, I mean, there's just so many guys, and then of course, we were very fortunate to hire junior high staff. And Joe, you saw how we did it. We were fortunate to hire freshman staff, and we moved those guys up. I mean, from the freshman staff to the high school. Whenever we had a coach that, hey, I'm a coach, he'd come in and say, I got an opportunity to be a head coach over here. I got an opportunity to, hey, we hate to see you leave. And I'd give them my advice on, if they took a head job. But then if we had to replace them, we didn't just hire from outside a lot of times. We just said, hey, we got this quality guy sitting. We got this Joe Flores guy down here. If he'd have stuck around long enough, we could have moved him up. I mean, but that was our thinking. We wanted to hire guys at the junior high and at the high school, and that's how Chris Morales moved up. I mean, Chris is another guy. What a knowledgeable. I mean, he was the king of weightlifting and powerlifting. He knew more than anybody. And what an asset to our program he was. I mean, it just, like I said, I hate to leave somebody because there's so many.
Yeah, there's so many. And I'm telling you, when I was there for that short time, all those guys, man, all those guys were quality guys. And,
And I can't forget Shane Fletcher when you were there. I
yeah,
mean, Shane had been running our freshman school, and I had told Shane we have problems. Shane, I mean, we have to get the freshman deal right because, Coach, when we came in '02, I mean, I'm kind of like, again, to show that you were right to a point. I didn't realize what the issues were at Midland High
right,
completely.
right.
And so I start researching after you kind of look at the high school and the staff and the off season, what's going on. Then you get to digging at the freshman school, and I find out very quickly, crap. One of the freshman teams the year before we come is 1-9, and the other one was 0-10.
Right.
And one ended up with 19 kids on the team, and the other one ended up with 23 kids on the team. I mean, we had a total of under 40 kids at the freshman level at a 6A football team.
I believe it.
And I told Fletcher, I said, help. It's like, hey, Coach Fletcher, I got to have you. I need you to get this freshman deal straightened up. And, we sat down and we said, hey, our goal is to have 100 kids every year at the freshman level. That's what we want. Coach, by the time Fletcher finished over there, before we moved him up to be the defensive coordinator at Midland High in '08, or excuse me, '09, Coach, we had 140 kids at the freshman level.
Kids every year. That's correct. That's right.
I mean, it's so. I mean, there's just so many. Rudy Innahos, who was at Goddard, and I mean, just Mike Craig, who was at Goddard when I started, and just so many.
Oh yeah. No,
Whether it was the junior high coaches or coordinators or so I mean, all I can say is thank you all you guys. I mean, everybody that was a part of this deal. I'm going to leave somebody out, but there's just so many that we were just blessed here to have, and so I have to say that just whether they were with us for the duration, like a Jim Conger, who never left. I mean, all the way to and Hector Lopez. Hector Lopez hired him in '02 at Goddard, and he was Tim's offensive coordinator the last 3 years. I mean, just all those names go through my head, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, I can't remember, can't believe this guy. I can't.
I do that, I'm coach. I'm telling you, and I know all the guys, especially middle high, that I got to know. They think the same as you, man. So I want a couple more. Probably one thing I always like to ask when I talk to coaches like you is talking to all your kids. You coached, a long time as a head coach, but even as an assistant coach, what would you want the kids to know about you all these years that you coached them?
Well, you know, I would hope that they felt like they knew that they were my guys and I would do anything for them. And even today, I mean, the special part of this deal, and I'll relay a really special thing that happened to me. Uh, in 2000, in 2007, we had this young sophomore receiver here, and he was still trying to figure out, who he was and did he really want to play football. He thought he was a basketball guy. Kind of went through spring practice and missed a lot of practices and then quit. And we really didn't even know whether we were going to be able to hold on to him. His name was Antoine Goodley, and Antoine was one of those unbelievable athletes. Had a tough, South Side kid. Really, but uh, I really, we had Antoine on the JV because I was mad at him. He did end up coming out of sophomore year, and I said, "Well, by golly, you didn't finish spring practice, so I'm going to show you. We're going to put you on the JV." And that lasted about 2 games. About the second game, I seen I see him. He catches a little pitch pass out in the flat, takes it about 68. About third quarter, he catches one in the flat and takes it about 78. And I looked at Conger. I said, "We're stupid if we leave this guy on the JV." So, but uh, Tyler was playing at Tech. Um, I see Antoine one Saturday morning after we had morning weights. Say, "Hey, you want to go? Hey, Tyler, they're playing A&M this week at Jones. Do you want to go to the game? You ever been to a college football game?" "Oh no, coach." I said, "Well, would you like to go with the? I mean, my family's going. You have to put up my dad. He's crazy, but we're all going to go to the game, and if you want to go." And so he jumps in, and we go up. My dad told him 2 hours worth of bad jokes to get the Lubbock back, but
Yeah, your dad
none.
was like my dad then.
So we get up there, and again, you park a mile from the stadium. You know how all that works. So we're walking along, and one of my first receivers in Hereford, my first year. I mean, he was 6'5", and you know great player, ended up catching over 1,000 yards, receptions. The state semifinal team. I mean, we're a state semifinalists that year. And name was Bobby Baker. So we're walking along, and I hear this man hollering, "Hey, Coach Yenzer." I kind of swing around, and Antoine, we're all walking to the game, and there's 35-year-old Bobby Baker with his family going to the Tech game, and I got to introduce him to my sophomore receiver, Antoine Goodley. And I think it's just about those relationships with the kids, and who knows whether we remember all the plays we called or all the touchdown catches you make, or I still keep in touch with these. I talked to Brandon Batch and talked to Barron, and Cody Hodges, who was our quarterback in Hereford, Love Slade, his twin brother. There's just so many. I was in Home Depot this morning getting office supplies, and I see one of our defensive tackles working at Home Depot, and he's telling me how, "Hey, Coach, I'm going to be a diesel mechanic, and I'm going to school right now. And I'm going to, that's Joe. That's more important to me than all the other stuff. I mean, I wanted these guys to be good citizens and want them to know, hey, we're going to do everything we can to help you succeed, and not only just in blocking and tackling, but in life." So I think that's your program has to stand for something, and I hope that our players can look back, and I know there's always some that maybe they didn't have a great experience, or maybe this happened or that's happened, but I would hope that the majority of our players understand that part of it.
No doubt. No doubt, Coach. Well, Coach, I'm gonna again, man. Of course, you were also the regional director of the Texas High School Coaches Association, 1999. Almost was a president. So that right there goes to show how respected you were in the coaching community across the state of Texas. And so, um, um, just to, if you can tell everybody what you're doing now, and we can end it right now.
Well, it's good. I mean, I have discovered. I think maybe I told you this. I was always that guy. Tammy was always, "Man, it's February. How come you're the last guy at the field house? It's 7 o'clock. How come you're not home?" Man. So it was always, I I'm avid weightlifter, as you know. I mean, I still like to work out because that was how I took out the stress. It's a lot easier to beat up on those bars in the weight room than beat up on some parent or some kid, that, you know, so there's stress relief. But anyway, so I was always the guy that did that, and so what I've learned, there's life at 4 o'clock someplace other than the field house. Uh, so that's been I've learned to spend more time with my wife, and that was in, it's interesting how retirement gets you, because quite frankly, I mean, Tammy and I had it took about a year or so for us to decide if we really still liked each other. Because I was still gone, and I mean I was gone, and I was at the field house, and I was coaching, and she did her
Yeah,
thing here at the house.
yeah, I bet you guys had to like reintroduce each other. Hey, this is my name. I'm
Yeah,
Craig.
yeah. Hey, it's kind of like, why are you here all the time now? you know. So, but we have discovered we still love each other dearly, and it's I better throw that part in. And it has worked out. And I mean, and man, we got 6 grandkids. I showed you a picture before we started, you know, and we've got, and I'll show you, and even life has its twists and turns. One of Clay's, you can't. He's right here. Let's
Oh
see. No, that's
yeah, yeah.
um, yeah. One of Clay's. He's of course we got three boys and 3 girls. So it's perfect
Oh,
because I still have my boys, that grandkids, and that's all we ever knew. Even our dog was a boy. So, Tammy was cursed because we were all male around. So now that she's got three girl granddaughters and actually two daughter-in-laws, you know, she's actually got somebody that can advise her, what really looks good. Because she'll ask me if something, and I said, "Wait, honey, you look great in that." You know?
Right.
And so,
I tell her
yeah,
the same thing. Looks fantastic.
man, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But now she has someone who really she can talk to, and the female persuasion, which she never had that at our house. So I mean, that's been special to kind of get back, and that's why one of the reasons I gave for wanting to back away is I wanted to spend more time with family. So we've been able to do that. Obviously, after 6 months, um, again, another God thing. And I have to throw this in. And you talked about your dad and his passing. I'd been retired about 4 months, and again, you go through these thoughts of what is it time for me to retire? I mean, and you pray about it, and you just wonder if that's what you're supposed to do. And I talked with my pastor, and we counseled. And so when I announced it in January, I was still like, well, am I really ready to retire? And Tammy was kind of like, this has been your identity. I mean, you ready to retire? This is who you are? And so I rocked along and walked away in July of 2017. 4 months later, my mom gets colon cancer, and so Joe, I mean, God has a purpose.
Yes, sir.
And I lost my mom 18 months later. But you know what? The time that I had to just take care of my parents
Sure.
and take her to cancer treatment. Um, Run to, and she's in Oklahoma City. I mean, to run to Oklahoma City
Right.
and be there with her and hold her hand. And in the meantime, I had to put my dad in a rest home. So those 18 months, I lost my dad and mom 4 months apart. Lost my dad in 2019, December 4th, and I lost my mom April 1st of, excuse me, 2018 was my dad and my mom, April 1st of 2019. And so that was special. I mean,
Yeah.
to have that time with them, to have more time with Tammy and my boys, and then along the way, I mean, picked up this little deal of letter jacket sales, and that kind of I still get to be around kids. Like I was telling you about Coach Cordell, enjoyed visiting with him Wednesday. We went and measured jackets. So I mean, it's just cool, and I express this to you. Um, and I can't. I was talking to someone. I can't remember what coach, and we just talked about the special relation. And he was a business guy, so he didn't have a clue. But the special relationship coaches have with each other, because we sit around on Friday night trying to beat each other's butt, and then on Monday we're trying to figure out head coaches or assistant coaches or whoever what's going to be best for kids.
That's right.
You know,
Right.
and coach, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in the real world. So we're blessed to have those relationships with coaches, and I still see that. And plus, I'm gonna tell you what, partner, um, I got to go elk hunting at our Colorado property
Yeah.
with my oldest son. I mean, who goes elk hunting in October? Not
Yeah.
a coach, especially not a football
Coach.
coach. and and I mean, we go to our cabin now and spend part of the summer trout fishing, and it's pretty cool to play golf in Colorado area when it's 4th of July and it's like 72 degrees on the course. I did say this. My summers are in Colorado right now because I've had way too many August and 103 on AstroTurf.
Which was about 125.
Yeah. So, I mean, life is good. The Lord's blessed us. Like I said, with my parents, I was able to, say goodbye to them, and which I would not have done justice to that if I was still coaching.
Sure.
So again, even in my life after after coaching. The good Lord has a plan, and we know that, and we just take each day and are blessed. And, we have our health, and Tammy and I are traveling. I mean, we went to Hawaii and we went to Alaska, and we did a you know 12-day tours on both of those, and we have other plans. We're going to go. I mean, my whole life was, I could tell you wherever football field in West Texas and El Paso and Amarillo was, but I couldn't tell you how to get to Alaska.
Man, Coach, I'm glad you're doing great, man. It's always a joy to talk to you. It always is. And I'm so glad that Madison, my baby, brought home a little order form at the bottom. It's great. And I just so happened to see in the kitchen, and I tell my wife, I said, "That's Coach Yenzer," and she goes, "Yeah, he just called me." I go, "Man,
That was weird. I know I called her because I had a question on it, and I'm going, and she said, "Well, I'm Coach Flores's wife." I'm going, "You kidding me?"
yeah, Coach." Yeah, so it's and I didn't have I got your phone and I lost your phone number, and so I always when I think about just hollering at you or something, and I got this new phone and didn't have your number, so then all of a sudden I see your name on that order form. So it was great, man. I always enjoyed talking to you. Always, um, I want to see you. I want to talk to you more, but I want to see you at our foundation gala, our first annual that we're going to have for our charity to support high school coaches and high school athletes. We're going to do that January 29th. Coach, I want you to be there, man.
Coach, I'll be there. I mean, yeah, just make sure and send me, if you send me an invitation. I'll promise you I will be there with bells on, and that's I mean that's what I spent a career doing. I mean that's what it's what this is all about. It's about the kids,
Yes, sir.
and so appreciate Joe what you're doing. I mean this is a great deal that the charity that you're running, and there's so many kids that need that, and especially with the COVID deal, I worry, because
Mhm.
with schools having been shut down, and what's happening to our young people right now.
Right.
And, and you and I know this. I mean, we have sometimes our young people get beat up and talk about, they talk bad about them and whatever. But we have great young people, and they're the ones that they're going to have to lead this nation, as we know, moving forward. Because
That's correct.
I'm getting way too old for this stuff.
And
But
I'm right behind you, Coach. I'm right behind you, man. But
I
no,
appreciate what you're doing, and it's so cool. And no, and I appreciate the invitation. So definitely, I'll do everything within my power to be there next January.
thank you very much, Coach. I love you, man. And
Love you too, man.
all right. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good
Thanks, Joe. Good talking to you. All
yes.
right.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.